You've heard us talk about hormone therapy by Happy Mammoth many times by now. It's a supplement that helps women maintain optimal hormone levels with over 50,000 glowing reviews from women all over the globe. 98% say that they would recommend it to friends and family. And that's why we're recommending it to you. Now we can take those hormone harmony results even further by pairing it with Happy Mammoth's probiotic collagen protein. It helps restore gut lining integrity, promoting overall hormone balance. It also helps relieve occasional bloating, reduce sugar cravings, and helps you feel satisfied longer. Because your gut directly affects your hormones, improving gut health can amplify your hormone harmony results so you feel like yourself again. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to making women's lives easier, and that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Right now, you can try prebiotic collagen protein and hormone harmony risk-free and get 15% off your entire order with code MurderDiaries at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code MurderDiaries for 15% off today.
Hey everyone, it's Kristen from True Crime Creepers. Every week, I tell my friend and true crime newbie Mogab about a case she's never heard before, but that I've been obsessing over. We talk about all the real-life creeps, from serial killers to con artists. So if you're into dark tales with a touch of humor, tune in wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Murder Diaries.
As always, if you would like to listen to this episode ad-free, you can do so on patreon.com/themurderdiariespod. Today on the Murder Diaries, we're diving into a story that's currently unfolding in real time. But this time we have a special guest to join us to do that. This case is out of Memphis and it's raising serious questions about the criminal justice system, eyewitness relatability, and what happens when new evidence emerges decades later. Our guest today is investigative journalist Stephanie Tinsley, whose recent work with the Tennessee Innocence Project has shed new light on the 2007 conviction of a man for the murder of Danny Harris, a case many thought was closed until 2023 when new evidence came to light.
Stephanie is also the creator and host of Everything They Missed, a limited podcast series re-examining the case. But our focus today isn't just her podcast. It's the investigation behind it, the ethical implications of wrongful convictions, and what it really means when a justice system tries to correct itself, or fails to. Welcome, and thanks so much for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. What a great intro. Thank you.
Hey, you earned it.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with the basics. Let's just get to it. Who was Danny Harris and what do we know about the night that he was murdered?
So Danny Harris was 55 years old when he was murdered, but he was a Tennessean. He was a father of 4. He lived in Memphis most of his life and died in Cordova, which is a suburb right outside of Memphis. He was very well respected in his community. He was a member of the Tennessee Air National Guard. He was a proud sports dad. 2 of his sons were in law enforcement. And unfortunately, later in his life, when he retired, alcohol issues became a demon of his. And he fell into some hard situations and had some people in his lives that perhaps led to his demise. He was found murdered on Halloween, although he had been dead for 2 months when they found him. And we know that because his pacemaker told exactly the date and time, August 20th, 2007 at 10:30 in the morning. When the police found him, the apartment manager had just gone to do a welfare check eviction, because in Memphis, when you haven't paid your rent after the second month, the sheriff's department goes with you to put your furniture on the street. And so when the apartment manager went to his door to unlock his door, the door was locked, the alarm system was on. And so they figured that Danny was inside, watching TV or whatever. And in fact, as soon as they crossed the threshold, you can imagine the odor that met them after a decomposing body for 2 months. And so this case found me, and the way that it unfolded, even though two of his sons were in law enforcement, it was one of the quickest cases, very poorly investigated. You would think it would be a very meticulous investigation, and it absolutely wasn't. He had been dead for 2 months, and within 2 days, they had wrapped it up and sent one man to prison while there were other suspects who they knew were lying that got to walk. And when I found out the details of this case, if you look it up, this case is closed, but it's not. And so new evidence came out with the Tennessee Innocence Project in 2023. And what intrigued me so much about this is I had no intention to do a wrongful conviction story. I am a true crime girl at heart because I love a good mystery. And so I had shied away from a wrongful conviction story until I heard more about this and also realized if the wrong person is in prison, that means the one responsible is still out there. And so my investigation in this case runs parallel. It's, did the wrong person go down for this? And if so, what happened? And is the real killer still out there? And if so, and no one else has the resources to go after them, I hired my own private investigator and I've gone after them. So it's been a ride I never thought I would be on.
You mentioned that this case found you.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, you mentioned the Innocence Project in 2023. Is that when you first heard of the case 2 years ago?
No. So I first heard of the case in August of 24. So it's just been about a year. Mm-hmm. And the way I heard about it, I had decided that I wanted to do a true crime podcast. Our family had been involved in the Alex Murdaugh murder trial. I don't know if you all are familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
And so my husband was connected to the case. He's attorney Mark Tinsley. Netflix shot a documentary at our house. So we were all in, the tragedy of the Murdaugh murders. And when that ended and the dust settled, I had never done anything in true crime before. My background is in finance. I've always just been kind of a corporate finance girl. And when the Murdaugh stuff was over, I wanted to take all of the lessons that I had learned from Netflix, Dateline being in our home, 48 Hours, 2020, you get to know all these people and you get to see how your favorite shows are made. And I decided if I could find something organically, I didn't want to force anything, that I wanted to try. And my son got in the car one day after school. And I mean, if you know anything about teenage boys, they don't talk. And so when he got in the car and started talking, it was just all focus was on him. And he was talking about how his friend Lucy was talking about her dad, Jason Gishner, who runs the Innocence Project. And I don't believe in coincidences. I believe if you say something out loud, watch for doors to open. And I considered that a door opening and called Jason. And he told me about several cases that were already closed. They had never allowed a journalist or anyone to cover an open case. And because he knew me through school, because he knew that I was married to a trial lawyer, that I knew how to take care of the evidence, everything that they've uncovered, their strategy, and that I would be able to tell the story in a way that wouldn't hurt any chances, he allowed me to follow along with him. And so that's why when you listen to the story, it's happening in real time. Last night, stuff was happening that completely changed the trajectory of the story. And so that's how I found it. And that's how I've been enmeshed in my life for the last year.
Yeah, there's an Instagram reel / TikTok video that was released where you're talking about how you just got information. And sometimes when these cases are unfolding in real time, all this information comes and you literally had just recorded. And you're like, oh, by the way, like you're getting something that I literally just recorded. Like I need you to understand what's been going on for me recently since the last episode that you even heard. Now, does this impact your upload schedule on the podcast side of everything? What does that look like?
It hasn't yet. And I hope that it doesn't, because I like the consistency of listeners knowing it comes out every Thursday. But I'm telling you, that Instagram post you saw, It was hours before you publish it. I mean, it was hours, but you just do what you have to do. And, if I get a note from one of my producers that says you got to change your voiceover, you do it. Yeah. I mean, there's things. 2 nights before the first episode dropped, I got a message on X from someone I never, ever would have thought would be part of the story. And it changed everything. And the world stopped when I saw that message. And I wish I would have gotten it 6 months ago, but getting it the day before. But when we take our break next week, we have 6 episodes and then we'll take a 2-month break to catch up on investigating. But in December, when episode 7 drops, your minds will be blown. Blown. I couldn't believe it. It's changing everything about the case. Everything. And heightening the security.
I can imagine, because that's a piece that, Natalie and I are thankful to not have to deal with too much. I mean, it's always a consideration for us because we also cover cases that are unsolved or mysteriously closed for what reason. So it can be kind of scary talking about these cases where the person might still be out there, especially if they're like in your area. So I could definitely imagine that that's a huge consideration for you.
It is. It is. And we have really taken measures because of that. But it just intensifies my reporting and my investigation and my determination not to stop and to bring everything to light. So it's really added some things that I never saw coming.
Can you walk us through what you're able to say of what was missed during the initial investigation? Because we've heard that you've uncovered some major inconsistencies. So I would love to have you walk us through 1 or 2 of them.
Well, so from the very beginning, like I said, they unlocked the door and turned off the alarm system. And so obviously, whoever left was somebody that had the keys and knew the code. So from the very beginning, it's pointing towards somebody very personal. And the person that was arrested and convicted, according to him, and there was no evidence that he even knew the victim at all. So you start off with that. They didn't dust the AC unit that was cranked all the way to 60 degrees. They didn't dust that for fingerprints. There was a towel stuffed in the victim's mouth. There was a towel stuffed under the bedroom door. That wasn't tested for DNA. There was a bath mat in the washing machine. That wasn't collected. There were 5 bloody fingerprints. They only collected 2 that day. And a week later, when they went back to the scene to look for receipts to tie a TV and a gun, and they wanted to make sure that was the victim, so they went back to look for receipts, they found 3 more bloody fingerprints a week later. So from the very beginning, talk about everything they missed. It was that. And when they were pulling the ATM videos, because the victim's ATM card had been swiped 82 times within the 2 months that he had been laying there dead. They were pulling ATM records. They were pulling his bank records. And when they finished the interrogation and got a confession, all of that evidence that was still out there, poof, was just ignored. So there's a lot of questions that, arise from that and just digging into that.
Who's responsible for this initial investigation? And have they ever been held accountable?
Well, so if you've watched the TV show, The First 48, it's been around for a long time, but for 4 or 5 years, they filmed in Memphis. And for all of us that do remember that show, you're going to remember these names: Tony Armstrong, Carolyn Mason, and Tony Mullins. And those are the stars of The First 48 Memphis. And those are also the detectives directly tied to this case. They are some controversial detectives for sure.
I have some questions about like the alarm system and the ATM videos since there were like 82 uses of the card. Of course, this is 2007. It's not 2025, but is this alarm system something that somebody could have like hacked into, gotten a code and had targeted Danny? Or is this something where it's like, no, at this time, when you look at this type of alarm system, they had to know it to be able to shut it off? There's no way to kind of like hack in and figure it out.
Yeah. From my understanding, it's not like the Blink systems or the digital systems, the smart homes that we have now. It was a manual. So it would have been somebody that would have had to know the 4-digit or 6-digit code before walking out. It was also one that he lived in an apartment complex. So it was one that was just standard in everybody's apartment complex, not a high-tech one. Good question.
That's very interesting. It starts to kind of make me question those that are like working the grounds of said complex as well, because do they somehow get access to those? Because we know that a lot of times when you're not home, like when I was first married, our first home together was an apartment and maintenance had access entirely. So I'm like, do they somehow actually get access to those codes? And I would hope that these are questions that the initial detectives were asking. Do we think that we have answers to that, or that they were asking those types of questions of like, who the heck would have access to this code? Because I feel like that's a huge key.
I would think so too. I have seen no documentation on that at all.
I can't stress enough how big of a difference therapy through Rula has made in my life. For the last many years, I have turned to Rula to access my therapy in order to manage things like OCD, as well as just the everyday stuff from existing here on Earth. I love being able to access it virtually, especially during the pandemic. My OCD was not comfortable going in person, and the selection of therapists I was able to choose from was incredible. I seriously love my therapist that I have right now so much. So with Rula, you too can find the right therapist for you. No, really, I mean that, because Rula partners with over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists that operate nationwide. And listen, most of your major insurance companies are going to cover in-network care. Most patients pay as little as $15, but depending on your coverage, you might pay $0. I know I do. And if that's not enough, Rula is committed to being there with you every step of the way. I know they've been there for me the entire time I've been with them. They've helped me find the right therapist twice now, 2 amazing therapists that I've been able to work with. They also remind me when I have an appointment. They can do this for you too. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/diaries to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/diaries and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. New players, new games, new rules. Squid Game, The Challenge returns for a gripping second season. 456 contestants from all walks of life, competing in the ultimate test of strategy, alliances, and endurance. For a life-changing prize of $4.56 million. With stakes this high, why make friends when you can make millions? Watch Squid Game, The Challenge Season 2, only on Netflix November 4th.
Hey there, it's Dr. Sanjay Gupta with some exciting news to share. CNN is now streaming. That means you can read, watch, and stream everything in one subscription. You can watch news live 24/7. You can also explore catch-up videos and explainer videos, and you can also watch a library of CNN's originals, including my latest documentary, It Doesn't Have to Hurt. Just go to cnn.com/all-access.
We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with this plight? Aha! Barb made her move, she opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
That would be a suspect, is let's pull all of the maintenance people, because the apartment complex is huge. There's 1,000 units in that apartment complex. So one, the fact that nobody smelled anything after 2 months and there's neighbors on both sides was really shocking to me. But I haven't seen anywhere that they've questioned any maintenance people. But that, you're right, that should be one of the first ones.
It is, because I know, like I said, from living in an apartment, when they walk in, whether you're home or not, they might give you notice, or they kind of have to give you notice. I'm sure that varies state to state, but they give you notice, hey, we need to walk in to do XYZ on, and they're doing it for all, in this case, 1,000 apartments. They can't do that if alarms are going to be shooting off all day. So it's like, someone's got to have access to those codes or something.
Right. You would be a good detective.
Well, thank you. Been doing this since I was just knee-high to a pig's eye. So
Right. Same. Right.
Oh my goodness. But so that is definitely something. On top of, ATMs have had cameras for a really, really long time. Do they have any footage of who was swiping that card?
They didn't wait on the footage. They brought in a man named Andrew Hayes, who had simply given 2 witnesses, a ride to the police station. He wasn't a suspect. He wasn't a witness. He gave 2 women a ride up and was simply waiting in the lobby of the police station. And because there was a name mix-up, one of the suspects had said the name Wayne Bobo. And Andrew, the man who is in prison for this, his middle name is Wayne. And because of that name mix-up, they pulled him back into the interview room. It quickly became an interrogation. And within 27 hours, Andrew has a 62 IQ, which is equivalent to a 3rd grader. So after 27 hours, an unrecorded interrogation, Andrew breaks. And he says he gave a false confession. So the video footage from the ATMs, after the Memphis PD got that confession, they just ignored the subpoenas. They didn't wait on any other evidence. There was fingerprint analysis that hadn't come back yet. They didn't wait on that. So they completely stopped investigating when they got his confession, and his confession matched 0 evidence at the scene.
What I get confused by is, in these situations, how it's allowed to just stay that way. Like, oh, we got a confession, so we're just keeping it that way, even though it's not aligned. Like, I feel like, and I wonder, maybe I should know what laws there are that even protect that. And I have to think that there aren't many, if any, because people do end up incarcerated incorrectly all the time. And it's actually kind of scary when you really start to look at those statistics. So I feel like some laws that could protect people, like Andrew, could be very beneficial, because nobody wants a case solved incorrectly anyway. So yeah, you got a confession, but if it's because you used a lot of really heavy duty mental tactics to break somebody who maybe their IQ and or socioeconomic status are impacting your ability to do so, I don't think that, obviously I don't know anyone that would think that that's very fair, but it's also just not beneficial to the case. It's just a waste of literally everybody's time. The family, the person you're wrongly convicting or, charging your time in an interrogation room with the wrong person. It's extremely frustrating. So this case has already gotten me a little hot and bothered over here.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things to get bothered about. The first thing that jumps out to me that I didn't really know, when you waive your Miranda rights, it allows the police to lie to you. And I think a lot of people that either aren't experienced with the police, or they think, of course I'm going to waive my Miranda rights because I want to help you. They don't realize that the police can lie to you, say that they've got your DNA, say that they've got eyewitnesses placing you at the scene. And you can imagine, if you've been interrogated for 12, 15 hours in a room with no windows, you start losing your sense of reality. Mm-hmm. So even the best, the smartest, the strongest among us, I've had 4 hours of sleep some nights, and I get up and by noon, I feel crazy, and so I could imagine myself under that kind of pressure, but I paused the production of the show for 2 months because I wanted to investigate more police interrogation techniques because I wanted to see how this happened. I was very skeptical about false confessions when it first happened. And we've all heard the phrase, the third degree, giving somebody the third degree, which you may not know. Do you know what that is? Do you know what actually the third degree is?
No, just only through context of just like the phrase. Yeah.
I didn't either. So the third degree is what it was a police tactic done in the 1930s and before. And it was beating the suspect. If you're giving him the third degree, you are physically beating them. And so what they did is they went from the third degree into these other techniques and they switched physically beating somebody to psychological manipulation. And so that's what police interrogation techniques are. And get the bad guys. Everybody wants the bad guys. Get the bad guys. But you have to be careful with this psychological manipulation that you can plant things, that you can change somebody's perception in a way, especially if you show them crime scene photos. And Andrew was shown crime scene photos. And so you start to think, did I know the red rag was there? Did I know, And so for all we know, that's what happened. And then when you don't record interrogations, like this one was not recorded, which blew my mind, you have no opportunity to go back after the confession and say, okay, hey guys, how did we get there? Was there a chance that we introduced something that confirmation bias? Are we having tunnel vision here? And when the police don't have that opportunity to go back and review, when the DA's office doesn't, when the prosecutor's office doesn't, this is what happens, or what could happen.
We spoke with Amanda Knox very recently.
Literally, I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
She speaks about the mental manipulation and what it did to her.
And she actually was a victim of the third degree. One of the officers who was interrogating her for hours upon hours actually did physically assault her. So it is still pretty prevalent today. Obviously, that was back in 2007. This case that we're talking about today is also happening around a similar time.
Yeah.
She speaks to that idea both in her show, in her book, in our interview with her about how these almost like false memories come up. And as somebody with a psych and counseling background, I very much understand that like the brain is like the ocean and that we know so little about both of them. I mean, luckily we know quite a bit considering, but there is so much more that we don't even come close to understanding and might not ever be able to understand. So this idea of mental manipulation is very scary because if you're trying to get a confession and that's your goal and you get it, it doesn't actually even mean that you got the right one ever. And when you mention the lying, that's actually probably one of the most common things that they do in interrogations of, so-and-so down the hall in a different interrogation room, they've already told us you were there. So why don't you just tell us what you were doing there? And then we can go from there because maybe we can help you if you just tell us why you were there. And then you start getting, then you've got them locked in at the crime scene. And then it unfolds from there when really they might not have actually been there, but you've just been exhausting them. And like you said, like 4 hours of sleep you start to feel a little nutty. So imagine that for hours and hours and then multiple times at a pop. Like it's pretty crazy that that's like the way we do it. And I know a lot of these people are very well-intentioned that are trying to solve these cases. So I don't mean to speak ill of law enforcement, but at the same time, we've got to figure something out that assures that convictions are correct because we wouldn't have things like the Tennessee Innocence Project and many other innocence projects if this wasn't a big enough problem. We wouldn't have Kim Kardashian trying to help out with this if it wasn't a big enough problem.
That's right.
Speaking of law enforcement, I am curious, how have they responded to you basically diving back into the case that they believe is solved?
They have not been cooperative with me.
I wouldn't imagine so.
Right. Yeah. Well, but you know what? Here's my thing. Police officers are human just like we are. Mistakes happen. Memphis is one of the most dangerous cities in our country. It has one of the highest murder rates in our country.
Oh, wow.
These detectives are overworked. Last year, they had over 300 murders. That's a murder every day. And Memphis isn't that big. I mean, population-wise, all told, the whole county is about 1 million people. But when you get into where the murders are, it's not a big area. And so these detectives are overworked. And I believe it would give an excellent opportunity to say, yes, we are overworked. Perhaps we got this one wrong. Let's look at it. I haven't gotten that yet. I met, not from anybody in law enforcement. In fact, I've had some pushback. However, I did meet with the Memphis DA yesterday, and they also have a unit called the Justice Review Unit that's fairly new to the DA's office. And they were open to looking at this. They were open to seeing what I had uncovered. And so that feels like a positive step.
I feel like this offers quite a bit of clarity as to why they might not even be so careful to make sure that these confessions aren't coerced or victim to the mental tactics that are used. Because to them, this is like, oh, thank goodness, another one off the list. We did it. We did our job. And now we can move on to one of the other 300 cases.
And not even just 300, that 300 that happened that year. And so think about the list of all the cases that remain unsolved. It probably feels endless.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's also opportunities to take a step back and see what can we do better, because just the ripple effect from all of this. And I know you guys take a lot of time to talk about victims and victims' families and how any kind of tragic event has a ripple effect. And so when you look at this, Danny Harris is the victim, but his 4 sons are all still in the Memphis area. And are they suffering? Because now are they questioning, is the real murderer of my father still out there? And so, when you talk about everything they missed, it's everything that they missed in the investigation. But then, so what did these 4 boys miss? It's everything they missed in their lives. And then if Andrew is wrongfully convicted, it's 18 years so far that he's missed. And it's his family. And I've sat down. Episode 6 that comes out next week will break your heart. I was listening to it before I got on with you guys, and I couldn't stop crying. And I wanted to create a true crime show for fans. And it does have all of the true crimey, stuff that we all love, but it's got a heart-wrenching piece of this that is just undeniable.
Something that we talk about a lot on this podcast as well is ethics. So how do you approach talking to Danny's 4 sons, these conversations with the people impacted probably most by what happened to him? How do you approach these conversations ethically?
So that's a really good question, because I'm not a trained journalist. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this before. And so anytime that I started planning to talk with anybody, I came at it from a mother, daughter, sister, friend way. How would I want to be approached? How would I want my loved ones to be approached? Being part of the whole Murdaugh stuff and seeing all of the journalists that had exploited some of these victims, I knew that's what I didn't want to do. So I walked in thinking that. As far as Danny Harris's 4 sons, I knew going into this, and I had been told that they didn't want to participate, and I respected that. But I always held them in mind when I was writing and telling the story and asking myself, how would I want someone to talk about my dad? How can I talk about someone that I don't know? And I really kept that in the forefront of my mind. I talk about Danny Harris probably got to this situation in his life because he was an alcoholic. Alcoholism runs in my family. And so I was very aware that it's something that happens and you can get in a very dark place. And I know that place. And so I approached it from that place. And then when I would talk to Andrew, who's sitting in jail, even though he's close to my age, it was, how would I talk to my son? And when I approached his family, how would I want to be approached? And when I sat in his mother's living room, and you can hear it in episode 6. It is so moving, and she is so distraught. And you just, I think we're all humans, and you just come at it from that instead of I've got a pen and a paper and I've got to ask you these questions.
As you're talking about how Danny's sons don't want to be involved, but you're also talking about the innocent person sitting behind bars, I feel like, at least for me, we've been doing this podcast for 6 years, and over time we've learned, all right, if we're going to cover a case, we usually want family involvement or at least their approval. Mm-hmm. It must have been really hard to grapple with, is this a case to be covered? Because the family wants nothing to do with it. But then again, you have to think, well, we have this person sitting behind bars who clearly needs help. So I don't know. I imagine that must have been conflicting.
Yep, very.
It sounds like the mother of the boys was willing to speak with you, but whereas the boys are a little bit less.
No, she wasn't either.
She wasn't either.
No, Danny's ex-wife. No.
What did that look like? Was it that they just didn't want to talk about it, but they are thankful somebody's looking into this? Or do they think that Andrew did it and they want to leave it alone? What does that look like for them?
So it has evolved without any spoiler alerts. It has evolved. But going into it, I had studied a lot of exonerees and the victims' families. And you have to imagine, if something happened 18 years ago, a jury said this person did it, that is what you've lived with for 18 years.
Sure.
And so I knew that that's what they believed. And who am I to tell them, any differently? And so I felt if I told the story in the most responsible way, if I laid out all of the evidence in a very neutral way, perhaps they would be open to it. And I think as you listen to the story, it takes some very dramatic turns. But I think that the story was laid out in such a way that everybody has considered other options. That has been a bit of a relief. But no, there's still people that very much would rather me never do another episode.
Something that we've seen as well when people end up doing their own investigation is they have people threaten them or intimidate them. Have you had that happen to you as you're investigating this case? Because clearly there are people that don't want it reopened.
Yes. So a few days before the launch, when I started doing some social media, I wouldn't say it was life-threatening, but it was very much, I could tell that these people that were reaching out over social media did not want me to come out with the podcast or anything. It is a little bit unsettling, but when you look at the whole picture, I feel sometimes that the Tennessee Innocence Project is doing an amazing job, but there's other aspects of this story that, they do a very specific job. The Innocence Project gets people out of jail, exonerates people. They don't prosecute the people responsible. And so I've thought this whole way, if I stop now, who is going to go after this person? Because I don't trust the MPD will, unless it's obvious. And so that is what has been driving me to continue.
Do you think that this might lead you to continued work with Tennessee Innocence Project and maybe future seasons that might feature other cases? Where do you see this taking you?
So I had always hoped that this would be something that I loved, even though it's very hard. It is very taxing on time and family. I absolutely love it. And I think the title of the show, it lends itself to season after season, And so I'm hoping that after this, another case finds me, and I would love to continue telling these stories.
It is reminiscent, at least for me, of Serial, Sarah Koenig. That was probably my first introduction to true crime podcast.
Same.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely getting those vibes. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that being their first introduction to this style of storytelling. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people interested in hearing how the rest of this case plays out, especially with that teaser you gave us of episode 7 dropping in December.
You'll die. You will die.
I need to know.
Yes. Well, we'll be
Right.
following along on Instagram to make sure we get all the updates and when things release and all of that stuff. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes. So you can find the podcast, Everything They Missed, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can watch the trailer, which is a killer trailer. I've got a great team that created I'm a sucker for a good video trailer. And so there's a trailer for the podcast on my website, and the website's everythingtheymiss.com. And then you can find me on all of the socials at the Stephanie Tinsley.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me so much. Thank you. And then in December, when the other one drops, if you want to get back together and talk about, oh my God, I can't believe it, I'm happy to come back on.
We'd love that.
You're not going to believe it. Thank you so much.
Course.
I love your shows. I've been listening to them since we booked this. And so I think you guys are just great. Thank you.
That means a lot.
And same to you. Same to you. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials. And remember, if you want to listen ad-free, head over to patreon.com/themurderdiariespod. And until then,
stay safe.
Bye. I can't stress enough how big of a difference therapy through Rula has made in my life. For the last many years, I have turned to Rula to access my therapy in order to manage things like OCD, as well as just the everyday stuff from existing here on Earth. I love being able to access it virtually, especially during the pandemic. My OCD was not comfortable going in person. And the selection of therapists I was able to choose from was incredible. I seriously love my therapist that I have right now so much. So with Rula, you too can find the right therapist for you. No, really, I mean that because Rula partners with over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists that operate nationwide. And listen, most of your major insurance companies are going to cover in-network care. Most patients pay as little as $15, but depending on your coverage, you might pay $0. I know I do. And if that's not enough, Rula is committed to being there with you every step of the way. I know they've been there for me the entire time I've been with them. They've helped me find the right therapist twice now, 2 amazing therapists that I've been able to work with. They also remind me when I have an appointment. They can do this for you too. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/diaries to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/diaries and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.